John and Jeff will not be there. So let's call finance meeting to order at 8 o'clock, November 5th. We'll show that John and Jeff are excused. I'd entertain a motion and also approve the minutes on the October 19th. So let's call finance.
Motion to approve minutes.
Jenny, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion carried. Public comment. Tracy?
None.
See no one here. We'll move on to monthly administrative reports. First up is the financials.
Okay, I will start. Did the treasurer's report get handed?
Yep.
Okay, so I don't forget it. The third quarter treasurer's report is handed out. Michelle will be here, but I don't think there's anything new or exciting on there. But if there are questions, I'll try and answer them. If not, then the vendor report is also here. Is also sent out. Any questions on that? We can take care of that now. Start with sales tax. The most recent sales tax payment for September received in October was 128,000 and change. Our year-to-date total is 1,080,000. So we've crossed the million mark already. We've got 3 months to go. Typically, we'll have one more month here, and then November, December higher due to Christmas. This year, who knows? It may not. This isn't a typical year. So our average monthly payments are 120,000. So we're still on track to cross 1.4 million by the end of the year, assuming we have free average or above average. As a comparison to last year, at this point, we had 979,000 compared to 1 million. Contingency balance is still at 27,986, and as we'll talk about in a little bit, the only thing I'm expecting that may come out of there between now and the end of the year is the coroner's office. Coroner's office continues to be busier. The last time we looked at it closer was right around budget time, and we guessed a number of 8,000 to 10,000. What we're going to do by November 15th, we'll be sending out the October statements. And I will ask everybody to do another double check to see if they think they're going to need a budget adjustment either between lines, or if they think they're going to go over. That's the time to do it so that we can have those here for the December meeting. The only ones I'm expecting are obviously the coroner. The sheriff will probably have adjustments between lines because of the number of lines and vacancies and all the other things that happen there. And then the health department had an estimated amount for their COVID grant activity. They actually had more money available. The activity is higher than what they originally projected. So what we'll end up doing is increasing their COVID related expenses, increasing the amount of grant they're going to get. So the net effect of that is zero, but it is quite a bit higher than what was anticipated at budget time. Also, a little unique this year, I think, because of supply chain and labor issues, is we will likely have more carryovers at the end of the year. County clerk's office has ordered voting machines. It's in this year's budget. They keep getting promised that they will be here this year, so if they arrive and we pay for them as a 2021 budget item. If they're not here on time, then we may have to take leave and all budgeted, including the payments from the towns, carry it into the 2021 budget when they actually arrive. That's kind of we'll know by the end of the year if that happens or not. I thought maintenance was having trouble getting the LED lights for this building. I did talk to him yesterday. He does think that he'll be able to get them all before the end of the year. He's driving around the Monarchs, getting them wherever he can. And then the maintenance department's actually putting them in. So they may not be installed, but you will have them here and paid for within the budget year. Promo and Rec was going to replace their car. When the EWAL list came out, anything that was within their needs and within the price range was unavailable. So they could either get some small tin can, which would be pointless, or they could spend more for a vehicle they need. So we'll just wait till next year. The 2022 list came out, and there are vehicles on there. That even if you ordered it today, it's not going to arrive until next year. There's a long delay. So we'll probably end up carrying over the 20-some thousand for the vehicle for next year. And because there was shortages and price increases in lumber, there was a bridge redecking project on one of the bridges, one of the parks. They did do it at $2,000. It's November. They're not going to start now. Carry that over. And there's some docks for 2 lakes that they're going to put in. The business they usually work with is closed, not a business. The other one is swamped, seriously swamped. So they may get there's like a cement portion on shore that they can get put in this fall, and they'll have the docks. You just won't install them until next spring. That one probably, that's the best guess right now, that one probably happened within this year yet, so that one may not be an issue. But because 21 is the way 2021 is, we'll carry those over. If we don't carry them over, what that means is we're spending something next year that was budgeted this year, and we have budget issues. So, other than that, nothing out of the ordinary for September. That's all I have.
Assuming at the end of the year, when all these carryovers will be
Yes, that'll happen in January, maybe February. We receive it in December and pay for it in January. We're still, if it doesn't arrive, then we have to carry it.
Thank you. Okay, medical, dental.
If you look at your medical loss, at least through the end of September, we're at basically 6% over what we collect in premiums, which is about 139,000 and change. For dental, we're at 3% over, which is about 3,000 over what we collect in premiums. And again, you can see these. I'm not going to go into any of those. That's just how those kind of they go. And then as for large claimants, you have a list of 19. I always look at the ones that are 100% or above, and you see a bunch of those, and you see that 8, 9, and 10 are predominantly because of prescription drugs. So that's an interesting thing to be looking at for the future as well. But this is a little higher than what I've usually seen in the past. We're usually anywhere between 10 to usually around 15, a dozen to 15 a year. So we're a little bit higher than what we've been in the past. But again, remember that we put this list as to anything that's over 50% of what our stop loss is. So if we're talking about ones that are actually over, that's 10, which is about where we usually are. So. And then I'll just go on to OT if that's okay. Sure. And again, for OT, if we're looking there, our jail is bumping up right against the 30,000. So before the end of the year, they will go over that. But if you look at the year to actual, they've usually been in the 30s. So that is not overly surprising. And again, part of this comes down to how much is overtime, how much is vacancies, because usually if we have a vacancy in normal wages, then we have to have overtime to therefore fill that gap. The sheriff's office is going to have at least one FMLA. There's going to be a couple people that could be leaving from the jail side. As you know, for those that are on the executive committee, an investigator is retiring in January of next year. So again, turnover, but I am not overly concerned at this present time. Human services, again, a little bit high, but I'm not overly concerned, and highway is highway. So from the highway standpoint, they're under their budget for overtime. Sorry, go ahead.
Luxembourg event that affected both the sheriff and human services.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For those that, and thank you, Paul. For those that aren't aware, you had a lot more overtime put in both from the human services side and from the patrol/investigator side because of that child abuse case in Luxembourg, that horrific case. So that had a lot of hours put in to be addressing that. Plus that other week, if you remember, there was the woman found, what was that, 3 miles out in the lake. So there have been a lot of things happening lately that have caused some of these things to happen. So, yeah, she was just taking a swim naked, that's all. So, if there's questions regarding OT or any of the insurance reports, I can try to answer them. Yeah, Gary.
I do have one, like for court cases,
Uh-huh.
we don't really budget for the court case. Do we?
Yes, yes. What we do in the court's office is we typically budget for 2 jury trials.
Okay.
And what we've done in the past is we look at the 3 to 5 year average, and we usually budget for 2 jury trials. There was one year just prior to me coming that the county had spent $15,000 on jury trials. And they kept using that line because that was the highest that they had ever done. But we had known from a 3 to 5 year average, that was more like $5,000. And so we budget about $5,000 a year for jury trials.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Questions, Scott? Not, everyone has a chance to look at the supplemental payroll. I would entertain a motion to approve. Moved by Gina, second by Joe to approve the supplemental payroll. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, hearing none. Motion carried. Moving on, 2022 budget items.
I just left that as a placeholder in case there was any questions regarding the budget. We can try to answer them. In fact, go ahead, sorry.
There's nothing new on that sheet, other than I have the detail for the change to be. And I have nothing that's come up in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, there have been no other requests. Hopefully you did receive the email from Tracy showing the justification as to the request for 30 hours from 20. That will be something that will probably be brought up at, well, it will be brought up at the county board and resolved, but if there's questions, Tracy is here if you want those answered. Otherwise, if there's any other questions or items regarding the budget, I or Paul can try to answer them. And actually Jeff is here, so that could be some human services questions as well. I'm taking that as a no, Mr. Chair.
I'm agreeing. I know I had an opportunity to go through the entire budget, as you see, but
Late night reading.
and I met with
Well,
Scott
it's one way,
and Paul.
it's one way to help you fall asleep, Mr. Chair.
And I did meet with Paul and Scott, went over all those issues. And they were explained, or at least somewhat to my satisfaction. Whether I agree with them all or not, that's
okay.
immaterial, but it's not going to affect the full budget. I see.
It was for the most part a well-written budget. I think it's the best one I've seen.
You know, the thing I liked about it, we talked about this last year too, and what Scott and Paul did is a lot of things that were hard to find in the past. You could actually track them through their existing document. Well, we transfer one part to another. It's easy to follow. It's never easy putting a budget together. It's a tough job.
Oh, yeah. Well, what I appreciated is that all the things that were going to make questions were listed separately up front, so that, the questions that were, it anticipated a lot of the questions that were going to be asked.
That's exactly.
And so that saved time, rather than waiting for everybody to find it and ask the questions.
Well, the other thing that I tried to do is I had that memo which kind of had, here were the things that I inserted into the budget. So that way there wasn't a feeling that I was trying to, hide something. So here were the initiatives or the items that wouldn't normally be part of what I'll call the regular budget. Here are the things that I'm wanting to do. And then from there, here's the cost, and that allows the board to review, analyze, and decide whether to support them or not. So.
The only other thing I had was, like regulate, but the proposed cost of phase 3, $175. There's some way we can pare that down because there's a lot of things that you guys know now that address that. And maybe they can pare that number down a little bit. I don't know.
Well, and I'll be talking with Mr. Kane because he did do a small amount of the work that I'll call kind of, we'll call it phase 2.5. So there was some work that he had done. How much of that can be incorporated into phase 3, that we'll have to check on, but you know, if so, it's not going to be a large reduction in the phase 3 cost.
Isn't phase 3 payments sort of a down payment on the, if we end up building one that get applied against a percentage?
No, that's, yes. Well, there's the phase 3 of which they're doing phase 3, but then that's just kind of the conceptual drawings. If we remember, phase 3 is a percentage of the total cost. We don't pay the percentage of the total cost right away, but the 175 is part of that percentage. Am I making sense?
Right, so let's just assume at the end of it, we pay them a $1 million,
Right.
or
just for
$500,000
simplicity, right.
architectural fee. This $170,000 you're paying now would get rolled into that
Correct.
fee,
Correct.
which you could borrow
Correct.
or bond for if you want to. Incline.
And as always, only because we'll be looking at each other, and I'm gonna guess that we're basically done, is if there's other questions between now and Tuesday, please feel free to contact us and make us aware, and we'll try to answer them as expeditiously as possible, since I know that Tuesday is the board meeting. And so I would like to try to get everyone's questions or concerns answered. And even if they're not answered, at least if you're wanting to know my rationale as to why I did X, Y, or Z, I'm more than willing to do that. Ultimately, how, the process works is the administrator submits a proposed budget to you guys, and then you guys can make whatever changes you want, because ultimately you guys are the ones that approve that. So the changes are to be made. That's well within your purview. So,
Probably should have a motion and approve moving the budget along to the board. Whether or not you support it or whatever you want to say, but we've seen the budget, we asked it to be board on the board for consideration or approval or whatever you want. Move, but I think you should take some formal action in that regard.
Do we have a finance committee meeting before the board meeting?
only if the committee feels that it's needed.
Or,
I mean, I have it
but if
scheduled,
there are
but
any major changes, you will have to have one, right?
correct. Well,
Not necessarily.
not necessarily, because there's two ways it can be done. It can be changes done through the finance committee, or it can be changes done on the floor of the county board meeting. And usually, I know that since I've been here, there's always been changes on the board floor, and there have been some changes in the past through the finance committee. So both avenues have been used.
As far as known changes, the last one, the latest one that usually comes from me is chargebacks. Sometimes they come later. And we got the statement yesterday, the day before. And the only one is the Dominion one, which is already in there. So there are no changes coming that I know of, other than what may be brought before the committee.
So we'd just be asking for a motion to move the budget forward to finance committee. It does not in any way obligate you then to not make further changes. You're just saying, yes, the budget should go forth to the board for consideration and approval.
Does anyone have any questions on the proposed budget process?
I was just gonna make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Jenny to forward the proposed 2020 budget to the county board for final action. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, hearing none. Motion carries.
It's 75. Is that what we keep it at?
No, that is not what.
It
It is a little warm.
It says 75, but I gotta tell you, it feels warm.
Or you eat up the fight.
We still haven't driven.
First thing, should we freeze them all or give them?
Yeah.
We went with freeze.
Yeah.
So at the county board packet, you
Usually if you get them hot and sweaty, the meetings end that much faster.
got this resolution of zeros. I'm gonna take what's in the administrative proposed budget, add these changes to it, and we'll have this filled in and on their desks for county board meeting. If there are changes that night, then we'll have to adjust them. That's, I've got to. Murphy's Law says if I would fill these in now, they would have changed date, I'm sure, like 3 times.
Does anyone have any other matters to bring forward?
Oh, just that December meeting, more than likely, we will be giving you insurance renewals. That's not health insurance, it's your bond, your-
Liability, property, workers' comp. Workers' comp is the only number I have right now, and it's down a little bit from last year. And there's a few smaller ones in there, like the officials, crime policy,
cybersecurity or
I'm
whatever.
missing
you
one.
want to
There's a smaller one.
Okay, next meeting.
December 3rd, I
December
believe.
3rd, 8 o'clock.
Yep.
And you will let us know if we need to meet before the,
I'm going to assume that since there's nothing that has happened this time, that there should be no reason to do anything. So while it's scheduled, you're right. If I did, I would make everyone aware.
this one sounds good. Anything else? Someone have anything else? If not, I would actually love to adjourn. Kenny, second by Joe to adjourn, all in favor? Say aye. Aye. 4-3, none, you're adjourned. Please, 20.